Hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to this airBaltic Pilot Academy Open Day here out of the crew center of our airline in Riga, the capital of Latvia. As you can see here behind me, it's pretty empty in the crew center. Our midday flights have been going out already, and basically I've got it all to myself here and to you for this presentation, which we're going to hold on this Pilot Academy Open Day, just to give you a little bit of background information on what the Pilot Academy actually is about and what it makes worthwhile to think about an engagement and studies for your future job perspectives in this in the Pilot Academy itself, or even with this airline. I've got a presentation here which I'd like to run through with you, and thereafter then we'll be able to hook up on some questions via Slido, and the team here is going to put the link in there where you can then actively place your questions, which I'm then hopefully able to answer later on. My name is Gerhard. I'm the chief pilot here with this airline, and I'll take you through this presentation now. So first of all, when it comes to the airline itself, we currently have slightly more than 1,000 employees. Naturally, because of the pandemic, we had to reduce our employees as well, unfortunately, but we are still operating as an airline and with these 1,000 employees which support us on these daily operations. Amongst these 1,000 employees, which we have, are about 200 pilots, all qualified on the Airbus A220. I'll get back to that a little bit later on. The average time, actually, when it comes to the career development, for you or for anybody else starting up as a pilot with the airline, has been so far taking about 4 to 5 years from the entry as an airline pilot to becoming a captain with our airline. We have a strict seniority system, but of course, naturally, additionally, we look into performance, into knowledge, into all of the daily things which go with the pilot profession before we decide if a first officer actually has the abilities to become a captain with our airline. Now, the pilot corps and the other employees here within the company comprise of many different nationalities. 28 nationalities we are employing here currently, many different cultures, many different languages. We all speak English within this airline. That is our company language, which we use in daily operation. I'm from Germany, for example, and then many other colleagues here, they come out of all sorts of different countries. Now, with the pandemic, of course, we had to downsize in a certain way as well. We had 3 fleets which we have been using to transport our passengers. We've been on an extensive line of growth throughout that time. These 3 fleets which we had were a turboprop fleet comprising of 12 Q400s. We have had Boeing 737s, pretty well known in the market. And then we took delivery of quite an amount of A220s, formerly known as the Bombardier C series, and they were there to to replace our jets initially, and then further up the Q400s as well. We had to change our entire strategy and our entire business plan, and we've put a revised business plan out, influenced by this pandemic, which is called the Destination 2025 Clean, and that one has seen us basically grounding the 2 fleets which we anyhow wanted to replace with the A220, and take entirely the Airbus 220 as the sole aircraft which we do want to use as our tool to transport passengers. Now, if we look into the delivery schedule, which we've put up on that slide here, you can see over the years how we will take delivery of these A220s to have an entire fleet size of 50 aircraft by the year 2023. We've just taken delivery of our 26th aircraft last week. It arrived here on Saturday morning in Riga, and we will be taking delivery of 6 more within this year. And then over the next years, as you can see there are additional aircraft coming in. Now, when it comes to new pilots joining the airline, then of course the perspective you have with airBaltic is just very simple, that we use the most modern airliner on the market. all sorts of modern aircraft out there. You see the other tools of the 150-seaters around being modernized. You see them getting more modern equipment, cockpit equipment, any sorts of other technical features in the aircraft. This aircraft, which we actually use here, has been designed to be something new. It is state-of-the-art. It incorporates the most modern technology available on the market. And with that, it is most useful to look into the future when it comes to simple things, fuel consumption, and so forth. We have a huge advantage with this aircraft on the market. I think it's been elaborated quite extensively throughout the media. You see on these pictures, which I've been running through here now, different pictures on cockpit development, on screens, round dial clocks going into screens which have been used. And this picture just being presented here now is basically the flight deck on the A220. You can see the huge differences, which of course, influence our daily work as well in a significant amount. And I think I've first of all, on different media platforms, told again and again what kind of lovely working environment this actually is. And I have not met a pilot up to now who has joined the A220 and said, actually what I had before was actually really quite nice and quite fine, or I'd rather like to fly that and that and that. I think it's a little bit better. So this is something really, really nice. To go further when it comes to the pilot training in general, then we have an in-house A220 simulator here, which has helped us throughout the pandemic extensively. First of all, we can conduct our training in-house here. We don't have to travel somewhere else, spend our time in a hotel or in a training center over that period, no matter what kind of training is, be it recurrence, be it the initial type rating training, whatever that might be. It is very, very helpful that we've got this simulator here in-house. And during this time of the pandemic, or where the pandemic has influenced our operations, of course, we wanted to maintain the pilots' currency in the way that they, when they go out flying, feel comfortable, are safe, whatever they are doing. And with that, we have used this simulator extensively. Although we haven't trained any new pilots, we have used it for our pilots just to get a lot more hands-on and to be proficient on what they're doing there on a daily basis, so that our passengers out there always have this feeling that no matter how seldom we actually really actively fly out there, that our pilots are not only well trained, but that they are in a good shape. And the simulator here, which is the most modern on the market, we've added certain features so that we are pretty much standing out even under the operators in the A220 community. Now, if we have a look into how the market is actually going to develop, and I've got a couple of slides on that here now, then we will basically see what we are doing here at airBaltic when it comes to our pilot academy and the students joining the airline. Now, you see that we are currently, I've mentioned that before, we're about 200 pilots in the airline here now. And amongst these 200 pilots, we've got, of course, first officers and we've got captains. If you take a crew factor of roughly 5 per aircraft, then you have 10 pilots per aircraft, which shows you here that we currently are able to operate 20 aircraft under full steam. That is, of course, not even enough to drive those 26 aircraft which we have here now in a good utilization. That is because the market is, of course, still rather down, and it will take a little bit of time to regenerate, the interest of the passengers, the traffic in general, to get us back going where we actually want it to be. Nevertheless, of course, with those aircraft coming in, and you might remember that I told you that we are taking initially 50 deliveries. We have 30 options out there. We do intend to take those as well, which would make it a fleet of 80 aircraft. But let's just concentrate on those 50 aircraft, which we want to take delivery until 2023. That would see around 500 pilots, which we would need to drive those aircraft. And we currently have 200, which would make us take another 300 pilots back in. You might know that when the pandemic started, that we had to release people as well. And unfortunately, there were pilots amongst them as well, like any other office staff, flight attendants or cabin crew, and pilots, of course, as well. And these guys have been loyal to us. They have been supporting us in our operation. They have been trained by us. So we consider them most valuable for our operations, and we do intend to take them back. But of course, we need many more pilots, and we do have a backlog currently in the pilot academy as well. And so we do intend to take a good mixture out of the pilot academy, and then of course from those former colleagues which we had here. And if you look into the development there, you can see the figures over these next years to join us to be able to have these 500 pilots which we need to drive those 50 aircraft which we're going to have by 2023. Now, if we put that into context with the Pilot Academy itself, and where we want to see those guys, of course, joining us. They're in-house trained, they're trained up to airline standards, and not only general airline standards, but up to ours. We have very, very high safety standards, and we incorporate them into the Pilot Academy training. So with that, of course, when it comes to any student leaving some sort of flight school or a pilot academy, it is ours, of course, which we have a big focus on, because they are trained to the highest standards which you will find out there on the market. If you look at those figures here now, which you can see on the right side of the screen, then you will see where we actually are now. We've roughly got a backlog of 80 graduates or Pilot Academy students who will graduate within the next little while. And then we have figures somewhere around beginning 30s and mid 40s of pilots, which will run through the Pilot Academy year by year, which of course is a good output, and it gives us as an airline a good and solid foundation to ensure that we've got well-trained pilots within our airline. I mentioned that before, that we've got very high standards. We expect high standards from all of the ones who join us. That's why we have a very intense selection process, and I'll come back to that in a minute. At the same time, throughout that entire training with the Pilot Academy, it is of highest value for us that our Pilot Academy students really stick to these standards. There are checks and talks in between. Of course, you have to deliver. If you want to become an airline pilot, if you want to be one of the community, part of the community here within this airline, then you have to deliver. We deliver, and you have to do that, of course, as well. And that is what we do by setting up good standards for the training and the training environment itself from day one. Now, if we are thinking about, okay, where to actually go, we want to become a pilot, me including, we've all had that thought one day that we really wanted to pursue this profession out of different reasons and so on. Most of us have a real passion for this job. We imagine it to be really what we want to do for the rest of our employment life. And with this passion and so on, we look, of course, where can we get our education? How can we get ready to get a good job out there on the market and be part of this? Now, if you look into what actually makes it a good academy, what makes it a good flight school and so on, then, of course, there are many things which go into it. One of the things is that you do want to train with somebody who has highest safety and standards when it comes to the learning, to put in the material which you actually need later on to get a good job. If you need to present yourself and you tell the airline where you've actually been training, then you do want to be able to be recognized for having the most have an excellent training standard which you can present to that airline. And that is something which we offer. So the integrated ATPL runs roughly somewhere between 18 and 22 months. That is the time period which you have to take into account. And that is overall, it's the theory, it's the practical part, it's basically until you can really say, okay, now I'm ready to join the market and to look for a job within it. We, as an airline, and I've told you that already before, when it comes to the pure airline, we have the most modern equipment you'll find there. We have the youngest fleet within Europe because we have laid off due to the pandemic, the old fleets much faster than we actually intended to. With that, our A220s, the first A220-300, we took delivery of about 4.5 years ago, and we are the entry into service customer. So we took delivery of the very first A220-300 which has ever been flying within an airline. Our simulator is now in-house here since the end of 2019. So that's not even 1.5 years which we have that simulator now. Brand new, and of course to the highest standards which you find there on the market. When it comes to the training equipment, so in the Flight Academy itself, our Flight Academy is young as well. It's got a lot of experience in it because it is the airline pilots who actually train the Pilot Academy students. Most of the instructors there are airline pilots, and they know what they're talking about. They've got extensive experience which they can streamline with the theoretical knowledge which you need to apply throughout your training when you want to become an airline pilot. So it is the extensive experience which we are able to deliver, and at the same time it is that we are having the most modern equipment. If you then look away from the building, the environment, if you look, take the instructors aside and so forth, when it comes to the fleet of Diamond aircraft which we use, they're all brand new as well. And they are 40s and 42s, so we do have a twin amongst them, and they're all brand new. When it comes then to you having conducted that training and having decided that this is something for you, which you hopefully will be able to say after you've invested all of that time and of course some money as well, and you have your license in your pocket and you want to join an airline, well, we are of course very close connected, the Pilot Academy and of course the airline itself, because we do want to see actually who is within the Pilot Academy in progressing in which way. And as these people are monitored in a constant base, they are coached at the same time. We do expect everybody who's able to progress through the training and conduct their exams successfully, that they are actually then ready to join this airline as well. Every single of those students is considered a future pilot with us because we train them in-house, if you want to say so. And so if you've done that training and you're achieved your license in a successful way, then we will offer a job to you. If we're not able to do that, then there is some good reason, and that would be going back into your training, which you would have known at a very, very early stage, whatever the reasons are therefore. Nevertheless, when it comes to the selection process, we already make sure that those people who actually are then joining the Pilot Academy are so intensely screened that we really know that they do have the potential to, first of all, run through that training successfully, achieve their license, and then be able to join us as an airline. Now, when it comes to this integrated ATPL, which we have in there, you have basically here, and I'll just put that all up here with all of the topics so that you've got an overview now, what it actually means on the distribution of hours when it comes to the different subjects, the topics, and of course the different details on how we conduct that training. And that includes, of course, the theoretical and the practical part of that training. I won't run through these details now exactly when you will do some night flights or when there's your first solo planned or whatever that might be. That is, of course, then details which we would look into at a later stage. But this gives you a good overview what it actually really means to have all these hours put in there. As you can see, it is an extensive work, and I can tell you over this period it will be learning only. It is sure a great job, a fun thing to do. It is so exciting to run through all of these details, and specifically when you go for your first flying experience, the first hands-on and so on. That is something unforgettable for the rest of your life. Nevertheless, I can tell you it's hard work as well, and that is of course what you are expected to deliver as well. Now, we've already been talking about the time frame. It is slightly under, between 1.5 and 2 years. That's what you can actually say. I've already elaborated a little bit on the equipment which we use within the airline and of course within the Pilot Academy. And then you can see here that the Diamond aircraft which we use, the 40s and the 42s, they're NGs and they have the most modern equipment you can actually really imagine and expect in a flight school. There is nothing more modern which is being used for flight training. The reason for that being very simple as well, that we have this big necessity to have those people finishing the flight academy really being able to join an airline which then takes this unbelievable step of you having flown a small Diamond 40 and going then into a more than 60-ton passenger jet, because that is exactly what the transition is about. And we need to make sure that you've got what it takes to really be able to manage this step and then to safely operate a 60-ton jet out there. And the tools which we use and which we include and the training we apply is tailored for exactly this step to be completed successfully. So we use these diamonds and we use them extensively, of course, for the training, and we make sure that they are run appropriately. So we apply airline standards when it comes to our flight school, to all of the technical sides of these aircraft when it comes to the way they are checked, the way they are maintained, the way they are used and dealt with. And this is a nice picture of the Diamond 42 taken with during a flight, which it has done. So, looking into our fleet, this is the development actually of the Diamond fleet itself. So you can actually see that during this year we have 9 aircraft which will be in service with the Pilot Academy, and we will put that up to 10. We had originally some slightly bigger plans, but with all these adjustments which needed to be taken here, we don't want to overstretch that as well. We want to make sure that everyone and each of you who joins with the Pilot Academy is to be able to receive a job offer with the airline. And that, of course, limits the output which we actually should be producing out of the Pilot Academy. Now, if we look into the selection process, and that is a very, very important step, which is to be taken very serious. I'll just put all of these steps down here as well, because I want you to understand, first of all, what the content of these assessments are. And then, second of all, I want you to see as well what actually the result is. So if we take it as 100%, not the number 100 applicants, it's 100% which is shown there of applications, then we will see that it streams down to roughly 8% of people who will actually be able to pass all of these exams and get invited to join the Pilot Academy for their studies. That is maybe for some of you appearing as a rather small number, but it actually reflects as well how serious we take these assessments. We do not want to just put the numbers out and with that put the numbers into the Academy. For us it is very, very important that we get the right people, the people who are able to really successfully run through the entire training process and then really fulfill the success by getting their license as well, and then being able to join the airline. Which means actually that every single of these applicants we actually consider from day one as potential airline pilots with us. With our high safety standards, it is that we really need to narrow that in, and we need to make sure that we just get the right people. Cool. If we look together now into a pilot career path, then there are some important things to think about. What is coming up here is a slide with incomes. Income is, of course, important. First of all, we all know that pilots actually earn quite well, and we really do. Nevertheless, it is, of course, certain work which we need to deliver. I will put all of the figures up there so that you have an idea what the average pilot earns averagely in which kind of level of his career path with us. Nevertheless, I do want you to understand up front a couple of things which you need to think about before you consider becoming a pilot. The first thing is you need to be aware of what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And this is probably going to be a decision which you take for the rest of your career life. Nearly all of the pilots who start up one day, they finish their career life as a pilot. There are a few people who decide, no, it's actually not for me. It's like driving a bus from A to B and so on. It's all every day, single day the same. If you have thoughts like that, then this is not for you. There are certain things which repeat itself every single day. Yes, we do fly the same aircraft every single day, and we fly from one point to another point. But every day is different. The clouds are different, just the views are different. But the details on weather, on the way it affects our flight, impacts performance and things like that is very, very different, and so forth. But is that different as well if you go to work somewhere at midday and you've had a nice long sleep in the morning, a decent breakfast with your friends or family, and then you go to work in a relaxed way, or if you have to get up out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and you have to be fit, top fit, you have to know your stuff, you have to be able to deliver spot on when you get into the flight deck and when you prepare for that flight, because that is exactly what our passengers expect us to do. Now, that might not always be so easy. It is shift work which we do. Sometimes we work at night, and we can't always choose if we have that weekend off or not, and so forth. It is something which you need to be aware of. What is actually the lifestyle of a pilot? And it is not always just the, the shiny bird which we move, the good-looking flight attendants which we walk along, or, well, however you want to see that. It is not always just the shiny stuff. There is a lot of effort coming into this as well, and you need to be aware of that. So a lot of information out on the net, and I highly recommend you guys to be aware of what it is. Cool. Let me run through this here now. So if we have our pilots joining, and they join as a first officer, step one, they have an average income of nearly 50,000 per year. And that basically drives up, I won't run through every stage here, this is absolutely not necessary. You need to be aware, of course, as well, that there's no automation of going from a first officer position into a captain's position. There's no automation. You need to deliver. And you need to deliver in the sense of that you need to know your stuff, and you need to be able to perform, because only then we can upgrade a person to take that responsibility of captain one of our aircraft, command one of our aircraft out there. And with that, that is something which we take very serious, and with that it is reflected, of course, in the salary levels as well. And if we see those, we realize, my God, that is a lot of money, specifically if you're a very young person. Yes, it is a lot of money. We earn very well above average of what is out there. But we have to be aware as well, as I've mentioned before several times now, that we need to deliver, and we need to deliver on a constant base. You need to be healthy. If you lose your health somewhere along the way and so on, then you might be insured. That is one thing, but on the other hand, you can't go flying anymore, and so forth. There are many things to consider in this equation. So this is roughly what we do over that period of time when it comes to salary and our upgrades. Now, looking into additional benefits which we have as a pilot, there are, of course, several. And they are that we, have a nice opportunity on travel, for example. We work in the travel industry, and of course we have those opportunities to travel on pretty low fares around the world. There are many, many airlines connected who participate in certain benefit schemes and so on, and they are available to us, which is quite nice as well. Things like health insurance and so forth, they are, of course, included. These are a couple of the things. I won't detail them now because that might go a little bit too far. Now it says here on this next slide, airline sponsored program, and there are the figures basically. Everything costs money. Nothing is for free. It is that the education in an airline, of course, costs a lot of money as well. Education which you initially pick up just simply as a pilot, because what you want to achieve is basically the license which allows you to apply for any airline out there, for any operator where you could work as a pilot. And the costs for that are basically, shown up here. Of course, within the process of if you would be interested in applying and things like that, we run through these details more extensively. But this is just to give you a little bit of an oversight what that actually really means. And the A220 type rating costs are not included here. So every airline where you would go working, you have your pilot license, and it just tells you that you are qualified as a pilot to go out there and to fly with an airline. But then you need a specific qualification for that specific airline, which for that specific aircraft which that airline drives. In our case, that is the Airbus A220, and you need a so-called type rating. It's this aircraft-specific qualification which you need. So those costs come on top, but in this case, they are provided by the airline. We want you to fly this aircraft, and we will basically take care of that. In a sense that, of course, you need to participate because we want you to stay here for a certain amount of time, and that will all be detailed once we go further into that. So as it says on top of the slide, the costs are roughly 80,000 euros. And that is, the standard. You will find very different costs out there to achieve a pilot qualification. I don't really think that you'll see it much cheaper. If you see it cheaper, well, then you should ask yourself the question, actually, what do you really get for that money? Now, if we look a little bit further on and treating this a little bit like an investment into our future, because that's exactly the way you need to see it. It's a lot of money to spend, and for a young person to put that up front before you've even earned anything substantial, then that is, of course, something which, has a huge impact on you, maybe on your family. I don't know how you would manage that. Nevertheless, we need to think a little bit ahead, and we need to see that as an investment. And if we look into that as an investment, then we need to look as well, what are the market conditions actually? And this slide here actually is put up by it's issued by the International Monetary Fund. And it gives us a little bit of an insight on how the economy actually goes in cycles or in waves. And the airline industry, of course, goes with the economy. If people don't have any money, they don't travel. If people do have a lot of money, they travel a lot. So we are very much in line with what the economy in generally does. We see that we had a dip there in 2008, which hit, the economy and, of course, the airline industry very hard. We have now, due to this pandemic, a huge hit, and we do expect to recover out of it, of course, as well. We see now that on the market, not on the market, but in countries, conditions are lifted, bans are lifted on traveling, on having self-isolation periods and things like that. And with it, we expect our travel, of course, to rise as well. I think if we do an online stream here in a month or maybe two, you won't see this empty crew center here. The crews have gone out now for the flights. The next ones are about to come in an hour. And we will then have a lot more going on in this crew center because we have an expectation to climb up back again. I've showed you before what that actually means with employment figures over the time. And you've seen as well that we need an extensive amount of pilots over the next years. Cool. Now, when it comes to the Pilot Academy, I've elaborated already on the equipment, on the way you get trained there, what it actually really means to train with an airline, which you would be doing here. And with that, I think the Pilot Academy is not only a fantastic opportunity. I, of course, look at it more from my job's perspective as a chief pilot here in airBaltic, where I'm responsible to participate in the selection of the pilots who join this airline actually. And my job is as well to monitor their performance in the daily operations. With that, it is very important for me that I get colleagues in here, into this crew center, into our pilot profession who are really dedicated and who really want this and who put everything into it because they want this specific job. And that is exactly why I am so happy that we've got this in-house Pilot Academy where we can make sure that these pilots are actually trained to the standards which I want to have, or at least which we need as an airline here to ensure that we operate in a safe and efficient way. Cool, and with that, I've mentioned that a few times, and you probably had a link there in between as well, that all of you are invited to to log on to Slido and to post your questions there, and I will answer them as good as I can, and we'll do that in about 2 minutes. I'll grab a quick sip of water and then we'll continue with that. Thank you. So here we are back again. I got my sip of water. I'm thankful for that. And now we've got a couple of questions up, which I hope I can answer as how to say, I might not be really having everything, but I'll make sure that we've got an answer available here for you. So the first question is, after finishing my pilot academy studies, do I get an instant work contract for airBaltic or other companies? Now, first of all, we only speak for ourselves. We are airBaltic. The pilot academy is attached to us. We are not connected to any other airline. So with that, I have no clue what other airlines might be doing. and if you would be interested into rather joining another airline than us. When it comes to us as an airline and the pilot academy students joining, then of course that can never be guaranteed. If you take the academy, the pandemic now, then of course you will realize that we just simply don't have the opportunity to take the people in now. We had to even release pilots. We will take them back in, but this is an unforeseen circumstance, and with that we could never give a guarantee like that. We do not expect this to happen again naturally that fast, and we do see the curve going steeply up, and with that it is most likely that you will be able to join straight after you've finished with your academy studies and achieved your licenses. Yes. The next question, in the last live session, it was said that a job after studies is almost guaranteed, but in pilotacademy.com, they said that they don't offer employment. So how is that? Well, as I just mentioned already now, we are heavily influenced by the pandemic, and of course we couldn't take the people in now who are still studying in the Pilot Academy. You must imagine, of course, that it is very useful to look at this anti-cyclic. So if you prepare yourself now, if you really want to become a pilot, in these times where it's not going so well, where people are not taken in, you will be ready at a time where the airlines need pilots, including us, and where we are going to rehire and take the people back in. We had actually originally expected to rehire the people throughout this year, 2021. At the moment, the forecasts are not so good, but it is naturally that, of course, we will, perform back into, an area where we need a lot of people to join us. And then we need to have the people being ready. If you train somewhere on the peak, yeah, fine, you'll get a job at some point. But if you do that anti-cyclic and rather join now in a time where it's not going to go so well, you will find that the peak will see you employed with an airline straight away when you're done with your studies. Does airBaltic Academy help us to get funding for studies, contract with airBaltic company, or help bank loans? So you won't get a contract with the airline, naturally, because we don't know if you are going to complete your studies, if you are going to complete them in a successful way. That very much depends on your performance throughout that training. So with that, we will have to see how that all develops, and we would not give you a contract up front. Nevertheless, when it comes to the funding of these studies, when it comes to the bank supporting you in a certain way, or you being able to get a bank loan to finance all of this, we are supportive in that way that the banks very well understand who they are or who you are connected then to with the Pilot Academy and with the naturally with the airline itself. With those banks knowing that, they know very well how to evaluate that. And if you've run successfully through those assessment centers, then you will have good chances of getting the financing there as well. We work together with partner banks. They know our programs, they know how that works, and they support us and you in getting the financing straight. So how much does the type rating cost on the A220? Now, the type rating is roughly 30,000 euros. The costs vary. So if we, offer that on the market, we might offer that probably for a much higher price. If we offer that house in turn, and that's what we do to the Pilot Academy students, then the costs are lower, and they're roughly about 30,000 euros. Do the 79,000 euros include the type rating? No, they don't. What level of physics knowledge is required before even applying to the academy? Now you need to have a high school, education. That's grade 12, which you need to have completed, and then you're probably well educated. Of course, if you've just been smuggling yourself through, then it might get difficult. The assessment center with us will tell us more. If while, wait a minute, where are we here now? No. one before, how's the selection process carried out in view of the pandemic? Did it change compared to the last year? Now, last year we were already under the influence of this pandemic, and of course, we've taken measures accordingly. I'm standing here without any mask. You will see people streaming into the crew center, and they all wear masks, and we do that here in the airline in general. The rules which are applied out there, they are valid here, of course, as well. We take a very, very high level of precautions here to make sure that we are safe and that we can go to work. And that is, of course, for these assessments as well. So much of it is done online. Nevertheless, we need to get to know you as well. So as much as we can do online, we will. But of course, at some point, we'd like to meet. And that is, I think, understandable. I want to be a pilot, but I can funding. It's probably can't, but I can't fund anything. But with a guarantee, you could ask for a loan. How safe is that guarantee? Now, first of all, you don't get a guarantee with us. You need to make sure that we could provide you with a guarantee one day, and that guarantee one day would be a contract as a pilot with our airline. And for that, you need to run through that successfully. We don't give you the benefit of the doubt up front, or only to a limited amount, by taking you into the academy. But then you just need to show that you have been the right person being selected for the program, and that you are able to fulfill the requirements which it takes to become a professional airline pilot. So with that, at that time we don't give you that guarantee. The banks we partner with, they are well aware of our selection processes. All of that has been streamlined in a way that you are able then to get the financing right, with these banks, because they do know the program. If while studying at airBaltic, I will be called back to my country for army recruitment, will airBaltic help me avoid it and continue studying? No. So whatever it is you need to do, you need to do. And you need to either have that up front. It's like with a university study. I mean, these countries who really do, who still have mandatory service, they know exactly what it means for a young person to interrupt education. And with that, they normally have programs in place and measures in place so that you can complete those studies first. I would make sure, as it is an advantage to to complete your pilot education and then go straight into an airline and not have it interrupted by a few years. To clarify that with the state responsibles or with those units up front, and to make sure that you have that all in place on what it takes to either do that service up front or to be able to eliminate it. But we unfortunately can't do anything for you to avoid or avert it. What is the expected number of students needed to be recruited for airBaltic company this and the next year? I've already provided that information on a previous slide. So what is the expected number of students? Now, as I said, what we will be doing once we start a rehire, we will be putting these two groups together. The experienced pilots, which we had to release at the start of the pandemic, and of course the pilot academy graduates, which which we have not been taken in up to now. So both of them will join the airline, and the plans, we had plans to start recruiting early this year. We had to shift them. For now, it is the question if we're taking any pilots this year. We're not quite sure. That might develop later during the summer. Could you, wait a minute, where's the next question here? How many days a pilot, this goes a little bit too fast, guys. There it is. So this one. Could you tell about average pilot monthly schedule? How it looks like, how many days you fly, how often you stay in hotels? Thank you, great presentation. So thanks for the compliment. Second of all, so we have very strict working rules, naturally, because we can't just, because we want to earn a lot of money or because our company wants to earn a lot of money, go out and fly extensively. We would be tired, fatigued, we might do mistakes. That doesn't in any way go with the safety culture of our pilot profession, and of course, naturally, it definitely doesn't go with the safety culture of this airline. So with that, we are limited. We work around, so we're talking not about a pandemic influence schedule. We are talking about how we would be working under normal conditions, everything going in a decent way. Then we would have roughly around 20 working days per month. And I said before, that could be nights including, that could be weekends and so on. So it very much depends on your schedule and how you influence it. We can influence our schedule here. We can bid for certain flights, for certain flight pairings. We can bid for certain off-day combinations and things like that. It would be around 20 days. It would be that we would have, so in the flying industry, in the airline industry, we count working hours not only by duty hours but by block hours as well. And a block hour is when you go with your aircraft, you take the chocks off, you start rolling the first time until you're at the gate again, you put the brakes on and the chocks. That is a block hour. It's measured in block hours. And we do around, in good months, we do around 80 block hours. And that would accumulate then to something like around 160 duty hours. And that includes, of course, training courses, preparations, the flight preparation. When you sit down here, you look at your flight plan and discuss that with the other crew members and so forth. What is the best way to get ready for selection, for the selection process? What is the best way to do it? Boxing, they say here. So I've got a little bit of support here, of course, because I can't know it all. Now, first of all, very important is be yourself. Don't pretend you are somebody who you are not. We will get to know that. We want to have the real you. And with that, we will figure out who you actually really are. So be yourself. Bring your knowledge along. And you have to have some knowledge. Can you prepare the knowledge in an extra way? Or you realize, oh, geez, physics was never my thing. Now I've really actually, did it in a bad way. Now I quickly need to learn everything. There's enough stuff out there. Read it up if you like, otherwise just be yourself. And that is the most important thing. We are fully aware that you are not pilots and that you want to start up with that education. So come in and once you get the training for it, we will make sure that you have what it takes. But until then, to pass the assessment, you just need to be yourself. And that's the most important thing. Cool. How many students from other countries like Spain, France, etc. do you have an average? Ooh, three as an average?
Spain 3, 7 French, 5 Germans, and the rest of
Three out of Spain, 7 French, a couple of Germans. That doesn't include me anymore, so I'm already done. So it is widely spread. It is, of course, a good mixture out of the local population. You must imagine that the Baltic states are rather small. Yeah, we've got a total population here of, I think it's around 5 million. And with that, of course, it is not a huge amount of people being available out of this area. So they do come out of many, many other countries as well. And so it's a good mixture. But it's all tailored to be a good mixture. Within the airline, I'm German here and I speak English. We all speak English, and that is the way the training is conducted as well. The classes are in English. Oh, there we are. And do you talk in other languages? Now, I've got German colleagues here, and I like to swap a word in my mother tongue. So, of course, I do speak German to somebody else as well. When it comes to the cockpit environment, for example, the working environment, you must imagine that if you've got flight attendants or another pilot, that would be very rude even if I would just continue talking in German where the others don't understand it. So it is very, very important to us, while we are amongst other working colleagues who do not speak exactly the same language, then we do want to stick to English, all of us. And we don't want to be, excluded in anything. And that's very, very important. To join the Academy in September, when do you think I need to apply for that at least? So when is the last point that you need to, in June, July, you would have to apply for that, to run through the assessment center and so on, and to be ready for to join in September. Not 100% sure how much there are still spaces available for September, but yes, there are. exactly. So that is possible. It's possible to join a Baltic Academy having some concentration problems like ADHD. That's a very, very good question. Now, we're all not fighter pilots, and we get assessed as airline pilots. Airline pilots do wear glasses. They might have false teeth, so it might not be all optimum, whatever you're able to present. But there are, of course, certain standards and certain levels. Where they would be with that, I can't really tell you. You do need to be able to concentrate, I can tell you that, because when it comes to situations, if we sit there, everything goes fine and so on, we've got the autopilot on, we cruise along on a 4-hour flight, then of course we've got time as well to just relax and, enjoying the scenery or a good talk with our colleague as well, while we concentrate on the job. At the latest, when it comes to the takeoff, the landing, if something doesn't go quite optimum, then we need to have our full concentration dedicated to the task. So that would probably be difficult, but I can't say anything to this specific question. How many days a pilot work a week as an airBaltic pilot? So we work full-time here. We don't really have part-time. Part-time maybe in a sense that we have a few people, we've got a couple of female colleagues who want to take care of their family a little bit more intensely. We have guys doing exactly the same, and there's a certain part-time scheme as well. We do not see this as a part-time job. So if you're thinking about okay, I'd like to work 50% for airBaltic and then 50% for Alitalia or something like that, that is not possible. In the airline industry, you can only work with one operator. So you need to be qualified with the airline you work, if that answers the question. Do you provide housings there? We don't provide, but we help, yes, exactly, sure. So there's housing available, and we do help, but it's not our own, and we don't take care of that. If I understand, from the 100 candidates, 8 only will join the academy. That is roughly correct. Out of 100 applications, it would be about 8 pilots joining. Can I apply to airBaltic if I complete my ATPL in neighboring country, for instance, BAA or Tallinn Flight School? Now, we have taken guys from other academies, from Tallinn, for example. Yes, we have done that. Our pilot academy is not that long on the market. We prefer our own academy graduates. That is natural. They are really trained up to our standards. They are trained towards what we want to see. And another academy can't guarantee that, because, of course, whoever you have their BAA, they will train for just the market. It could be anything. That doesn't meet our, standards in that way. So we would have to put extra work into that. So we definitely prefer the people out of our own academy. But of course, it could be that the airline grows so intensely that we will not be able to cover with our own academy, and then we would take people from outside, preferred from ours. What is the age limit to start study? Sorry? Okay, when we take it to the minimum, the minimum level is of course 18. You need to be 18 to do that. If you look at the what is the latest that you can start up? Well, as a pilot, we have to retire with 65. If you want to invest that amount of money when you're 60, not quite sure. So there is actually no limit. So the only limit is the lower one, which would be 18. Those 79,000 euros of study costs are only the ATPL, or the type rating is included. I've answered that already. The type rating is not included. Is first pilot salary in airBaltic enough to pay the house, type rating, bank loan, etc.? Now, when we talked about when to start the studies and things like that, if you start as a 40-year-old and you've got a family with 7 kids at home, then it might be very difficult to balance the income towards your needs. Assuming that you are a young person, don't have those obligations, then it is surely enough to live a good life and to be able to pay those back. Sure, otherwise it would not be tailored towards that. What is the rules of wearing glasses in cockpit? If you need glasses, you wear them. There's a rule that you have to have them constantly with you, and that would be it. Otherwise, there's no rule that you can't have glasses. I wear reading glasses myself, and I wear them during a flight. During the theoretical courses, during the exam, the questions will be only MCQ or also open questions during the theoretical courses during the exams. So just in general, if you think that learning the questions all by heart out of question banks or something like that helps, and that you know the answers and so on, then that's a very, very wrong approach. You should be ready to answer just any question, and then you'll survive anything, and even an open theoretical question. There are normally no questions like that, but that is what you have to be prepared for. Why only 8 out of 100? Just simply because the others do not, fulfill our requirements. That is simply, it's an average statistical value. We have all sorts of people applying, and then we realize that some of them are just simply not able to do the job. Do you need to be with very good physics, strong, no, sure not. We have very petite people working with us. There's no strength required anymore when it comes to handling the job. Fine, I see there are still the one or other question, and they probably keep streaming in. I think I've elaborated on most of it, whatever we can deliver. We are aware that there might be more out there. Have a look on our websites, check out the internet in general, and you'll find so much about the pilot profession in general, and then of course in airBaltic as well, and when it comes to how to study and what entry requirements are and things like that. We provide a lot of information on our websites as well. Check them all out. And then I hope you found this very useful. I hope that we were able to elaborate on what you wanted to hear from us, and that we would be able then for you to make a decision towards our pilot academy if you are interested in becoming a pilot and have really given that a very, very thorough thought. So thanks for joining us today on this Pilot Academy Open Day, and we will have more of those. Nevertheless, if you do have questions, put them forward on the different platforms which are out there. Thanks very much for joining today. Thank you and bye-bye.